The Chernobyl meltdown and explosion is by far the worst nuclear disaster the world has ever seen. If you are over 30, you've heard of the famous Soviet disaster of Chernobyl. If you haven't, here is a recap. On April 26, 1986, about 1:23 a.m., reactor number 4 overheated and exploded. That released a radioactive cloud that ended up killing 3 people immediately and several thousand directly from radiation. The exact number is still a bit of a debate. It also caused untold troubles for much of Europe. The meltdown created a fear of nuclear power that still exists today, but many of the more interesting and integral facts have not been widely publicized. Here are 10 things I find really interesting. Number 1. Sweden actually sent the first alert. You have to remember 1986 was still during the Cold War. The Soviet Union did not tell the West what was happening right when it happened. Sweden sent out the first alert that something was happening. It was not until the world pointed their satellites towards what is now northern Ukraine, that we realized what had happened. Number 2. Radioactive iodine is the first killer. After the blast, the real killers come in the form of radioactive isotopes transmitted by dust particles floating in the air and falling to the ground. Radioactive iodine is one of the most dangerous because it can quickly be accumulated in the thyroid gland, leading to thyroid cancer and death. If you have enough natural iodine stored in your thyroid, then radioactive iodine will not accumulate. This is why relief efforts begin by giving iodine pills to people in affected areas, trying to prevent the accumulation of radioactive iodine in their bodies. Number 3. Strontium-90 and cesium-137 are the long-term killers. Probably the most serious threat is cesium-137 and strontium-90. Strontium-90 follows calcium chemistry so that it is readily incorporated into the bones and teeth, particularly of young children who have received milk from cows consuming contaminated forage. Cesium-137 parallels potassium chemistry, so it is readily taken into the blood and may be incorporated into tissues of people. The relatively long half-life of both these isotopes still makes them a huge problem today. Number 4. Radiation in Chernobyl is relative. In science, radiation falls on a spectrum of electromagnetic radiation. Light is somewhere in the middle. Of course, these rays exist all around us all the time. It's the amount that is the issue. Surprisingly, even very close to the main reactor, your levels of radiation can be very low. Number 5. Nobody lives in Chernobyl. There are lots of people that live in Chernobyl at different times. The ghost town that you see in most pictures is the feeder city of Pripyat. In theory, nobody lives there anymore. However, the town of Chernobyl, which is just over 10 kilometers from the reactor, has residents that cycle in and out on regular intervals. Number 6. You can still die from radiation in Chernobyl. If you already knew that radiation was not too bad in Chernobyl, you might think it's not bad. These hotspots are usually found in cracks in and around Pripyat where the radioactive particles accumulated. They are also in areas of the Red Forest where a lot of the main fallout happened as was buried. Essentially, our safety personnel told me that I could probably stand about 4 hours laying in that spot before succumbing to the dangerous radiation and then slowly dying because of it. Number 7. The animals are radioactive but doing well. The radiation causes odd growths and birth defects in the animals there. We as humans would not stand for even a 1% rate of abnormality in our own species. Yet, for the animals here, this seems a small price to pay for living a place that is relatively free of humans. The truth is that the human presence is probably the biggest problem for most animals to survive. Number 8. The Wormwood Star Prophecy. In the book of Revelations, an angel predicted a giant star, a wormwood star, would bring on doomsday. Well, Guess what the name for the wormwood plant is in this region? It's none other than Chernobyl, whose namesake later became the name of the town that fed the power plant. Yes, it is. Finding the wormwood plants there was one of my main goals. Number 9. You can actually visit Chernobyl. While we were the first crew with Animal Planet to be given access to this wide array of the exclusion zone to study and film within, you can actually visit it as a tourist or go as a scientist. I did not pass any American tourists, but there were 1 or 2 vanloads of Polish visitors coming to see it. Clearly, there are ways to see it if you want to be adventurous. It will open your eyes to even more truth about nuclear energy. Number 10. Chernobyl is an amazing experiment. It's hard for most people to see any silver lining in a nuclear disaster. However, while you'd never be able to subject animals or humans to these levels of radiation in a designed experiment, you can study the effects of the animals here and compare them to those outside the zone. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.